Today we are going to be making millions using the Toyota Celica, one of the latest cars to receive an engine swap with update 1.61, and this vehicle's engine swap is coming out of the Lexus SC430 GT500. So yes, this is a Group 2 power plant going into a Toyota, which means it'll have great performance as well as great fuel efficiency, making it perfect for money grinding. So we have 2 events to go over, but 3 methods in total. So starting off with the WTC 700 around Le Mans. So this is a 30-minute event where you need to complete as many laps as possible, but it's not as simple as that, because you also need to keep an eye out on the weather radar, because before you know it, rainfall will come and it will throw a spanner in the works. So with that being said, let's start off with the setup for that event. Now for this race, I tried 2 different methods, using the turbocharged setup as well as non-turbo setup. Now there are a few differences between the 2 setups, but mainly the parts that stay the same were our tire compound, because I purchased racing hards as well as racing intermediates, and we start off on racing hards because you don't know whether or not rainfall will occur, but there's like an 85% chance it will, so it's rather safer to have the tires than not have them. Then the suspension setup, as you can see on screen right now, I ran for Le Mans. It's not a very aggressive, the suspension isn't extremely hard, and it creates decent handling. Then we see there's still no differential, no torque vectoring differential. The downforce for the turbocharged vehicle, we see it has 70 downforce in the front, 140 in the rear. Our fully customizable ECU is set to 70. Now talking about downforce, we see that the vehicle has type A front bumper, type A side skirts, and I think type A rear diffuser. It does not have the very aggressive diffuser, and this is also why the performance points is quite low. And even if you take a look at the rear wing, this does not have a fully customizable rear wing. So we see with that setup and the turbocharger obviously being your high RPM turbocharger, well, we see we are going to be left with 586 brake horsepower and a vehicle that weighs 1122 kgs. So honestly, some strong stats, and that resulted in a decent performance. I won't lie to you, because I saw on my initial lap I was able to actually set a lap time of 3 minutes and 58 seconds, which is quite impressive. Now one thing about this vehicle, with it being a Group 2 engine swap, you can run it on fuel map level 1 and you will go the distance. I actually found myself completing 4 laps with using no fuel saving tactics before I had to dive into pits. The vehicle is extremely light on fuel and it is just fun. It's a good vehicle that will go the distance. Now obviously lap times, you will be aiming or completing lap times around the 4-minute mark. By doing this, this means you will be able to complete 8 laps of this event, which is on par with being one of the best vehicles to use. It's super easy, it dominates the opponents to a point where you will lap them. That is how fast this vehicle is. And even though it doesn't have a ton of downforce, it doesn't feel like it's lacking or struggling. It takes corners decently well, and with Le Mans, the main thing is those massive straightaways. So the fact that the vehicle doesn't have a ton of downforce really holding it back, you can see yourself traveling at quite high speeds. I mean, coming down the straightaway, I found myself doing 326 kilometers per hour before I need to slam on the brakes. So yes, this car is extremely fast, and that's the main goal. Your vehicle needs to be fast. Now with this event, I actually found myself running a few mistakes, getting a few penalties here and there, and running off circuit because I ended up with racing on tires when the rainfall occurred, and I ended up going sideways. So even with my mishaps, with me spinning out, with me getting countless penalties, the vehicle was still more than capable of getting the win. The vehicle was absolutely zooming. It's a pleasure to drive, and before I knew it, the event was over. I completed it in 7 laps. The reason I couldn't do an 8 lap was due to the fact of, well, I spun out and had a few issues, but still, regardless, completed it in 30 minutes and 6 seconds, and I lapped every single opponent. Let's take a look at the setup for the NA version of this. Well, we see tire compound remains the same, suspension stays the same. Our aerodynamics do change because now we see the body kit has changed. So now we have type B parts applied to a vehicle, which means it gets a bit more downforce, because we see now at the rear we have 340 downforce and 110 in front. The ECU is set to 100, so this is as much power as possible that the standard engine can produce. We see no turbocharger applied, so we will be left with 550 in brake horsepower in a vehicle that weighs 1122 kgs. Now when it comes to lap times, I found this vehicle averaging around a 4-minute 2-second mark, 4-minute 3-second mark. Obviously I gotta count or ignore the penalties I ran, because obviously with Le Mans, if you run just a little bit wide, you are getting a penalty. But this vehicle was an absolute joy. In my opinion, I actually prefer the NA version compared to the high RPM turbocharger, because even though coming down the straightaway, yes, you are able to go a lot faster with the vehicle having a turbocharger equipped, because I found myself in the NA vehicle only managing to do 315 kilometers per hour. So that's more than 10 kilometers slower than the turbo, but honestly, you don't really feel the difference. In my opinion, the NA version is just a lot easier, a lot smoother to drive, and it's almost more enjoyable. But so whether you do the NA setup or the turbocharged setup, you will be able to, you will only need to go into a pit a single time, and that's like at the end of the 5th lap or the 4th lap, because with the NA setup I only went into a pit at the end of the 5th lap. So that is how extremely light on fuel this vehicle is, because both runs were on fuel map level 1. If you set it on over to fuel map level 3 or level 6, in fact 6 may even be overkill, because you will complete the entire event without needing to refill, but you will just really dampen your times overall, because regardless you will need to go in and change your tire compound. So with that being said, the WTC 700 is a perfect event for this vehicle. Now moving on to an event that this car is so good at, but I don't think it's the best one suited for it, and that is the WTC 800 around Sardinia. Now when it comes to Sardinia, the setup I put into it was a lot more aggressive. Now for this event, we're going to start off on racing medium tires, then we're going to later switch on to racing hards. So for suspension, we see it is different compared to the WTC 700 setup, where the front suspension is a lot more aggressive, it's a lot stiffer, and this just helped with cornering, because I actually found myself running a bit wide on a few corners. So by just adjusting it, well, it really fixed the issue. Then we see max downforce being 200 in the front, 340 in the rear. ECU output is at 100, and this is a fully maxed out build. The vehicle is fully maxed out, and it comes in at 760 performance points with 837 brake horsepower and 1122 kg. So this vehicle is fully upgraded, and it's still far under the 800 performance points mark, and you can actually feel that when you're driving or racing this event, because you aren't catching the opponents as fast compared to the Le Mans event. So with this event, I won't say it's difficult, but you are able to really just keep up with the opponents and have enough power to still have a bit more of an advantage. Now what I did was throw the vehicle on fuel map level 3 once the event started, and I ran it around the circuit. So I began just slowly working my way up the field, had a few moments where I ran off circuit. Obviously, you know, not every race is a perfect race, and before I knew it, I was just slowly working my way up the field. Then I actually found myself in first place by the 4th lap. Now at this point, my fastest lap time was a 1 minute 41, which was not fast whatsoever. And then I began to take note that this is actually my average time. I began averaging lap times around the 1 minute 41 second mark, which is not the best. So now at the end of the 6th lap, I dove into a pit and I changed my tire compound. So now I'm going to be coming out on the 7th lap with racing hard tires and a full tank of fuel. So with that being done, I kept the vehicle on fuel map level 3 and I just ran it there for the entirety of the event. The vehicle, obviously you can feel the difference now inside a compound. The racing horns aren't as good as the racing mediums, and because of that I actually found my average time beginning to drop a little bit. So now we're running a 1 minute 42, a 1 minute 43 around that mark, but the occasional 1 minute 41. So you can feel the change with the tire compound, but the vehicle just ran away from the opponents. It is such a pleasure to drive the vehicle now, where you don't have to keep diving into pits and you can just drive and set consistent lap times. I actually found myself setting a fastest lap time of a 1 minute 39.5, which was quite impressive considering the fact of I am on racing tires. So the vehicle completed the entire event in just over 26 minutes. Now 26 minutes is not particularly fast for this event, because I mean there's cars that can complete in 23 minutes. So look, if you want to try it and use it for this event, you can. There's absolutely no reason why not. And as you can see, I lapped all of the opponents. The Toyota with this engine swap in it is an absolute dream and perfect for money making. And if you want to see me make a setup for the WTC 600, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll check you guys in the next video.